Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 13th, 2025 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay. All right. First, we'll do a roll call. All right. So, Sarah Linsky.
Here.
Okay. And Kent Moffett.
Here.
Are you not a co-host? Oh, sorry.
And Rob Sheehan. Okay. And Indra Deb. Here. Bill Boyven.
Here.
Ed Turco, absent. Okay. Larry Cohen is present for the record.
Maybe?
Sadie Backstrom.
Here.
Thank you.
Maybe I have to do whatever. No, I know. We'll figure
All
it out.
right.
From now on.
Okay. So after calling the meeting to order, this hearing of Conservation Commissions will be held in person at the meeting room on the second floor of Town Hall. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technical problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. All right, so now that you have that over, could I call for public comment? Someone here for public comment?
I think we have somebody, Mr. Cohen, that's supposed to be here.
Oh,
I don't see a hand raised.
Well,
Is there anybody online for public comment?
Yes, I was on mute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Please,
Okay, I was on.
state your
I
name.
apologize.
That's fine. State your name for the record, and where you live, and you have, a few minutes is yours.
Thank you. It's Rich Costa calling from 8 Sarah Street in regards to the home that's being built on 12 Sarah Street. I'll be quick. I'm calling in respect to the trees and shrubs that are supposed to be put in the back of that home in order to help with some of the water problems that migrate down to my house, which is 2 houses away. And I was there at the last meeting, and I was told that the trees were in, and unfortunately I did not see the trees. I believe it was 10 to 12 foot oaks that are supposed to be planted back there. I did not know if the committee had any updates on that.
Okay, before we comment, we'll see if anyone else has something similar to say. Anybody else want to talk?
Okay,
about-
thanks.
Yeah, hang on a second. Anybody else? Yeah.
Sure.
Please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record and where you live.
My name is Gilberto, and I live at 10 Beaver Brook Road. I'm here for the same issue.
Yes.
We were hoping to see those trees planted to help mitigate the water in our backyards, and I'm here for the same issue.
Very good. Thank you for those comments. All right, anyone else? Okay, so we're on the same routine. You state your name for the record, you state where you live, and then you have 3 or 4 minutes.
I may be back to finish it next week. John Hickey, 10 Sarah Street. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Cohen, thank you for taking my call the other week.
Sure.
I know it's not public record, but it helps to be able to talk to somebody outside of the meeting to get clarification. One question I had is, I sent multiple emails and pictures to the commission. I'm sure everybody received them, and you've looked them over, I hope. Is that brought in as public record? Does that become part of the public record? The emails I sent the whole commission?
Eileen, could you comment on that?
Well, they're public record, but the hearing was closed quite a long time ago for the notice of intent, and we don't have one open for the certificate of compliance.
Right. So, any
they are
email,
public record.
well, first of all, my understanding is any email you sent is a public record. So obviously, if you're going to put, I'm not suggesting this for you, but I'm saying for, in general, anything that's best not put in writing, that you don't want to have revealed to anybody else, you don't want to do that. You want
Yeah.
to make sure you understand it's a public.
Right.
Anybody could request it,
Okay.
okay?
Now I'll start my 5 minutes. That being said, I'm going to reiterate, because I want it as public record, recorded and whatnot, so there are a few things I'm going to reiterate from those emails. So I'm sure you've read my emails and my videos regarding the wetlands and the retention wall. As Mr. Cohen stated, prior to the meeting, project on 12 Sarah Street is the most highly engineered project that he has seen in 30 years. To that point, I've stressed at several public meetings and in my emails that it's important for the commission to stay on top of this project and make sure that everything is properly carried out to protect my property and my neighbors. I also want to reiterate, on March 26th of '24, Conservation Commissioner Eileen Coleman sent me an email assuring me that they would stay on top of the project. At this point, I'm going to say actions speak louder than words, and it is beyond me as a citizen of Burlington for 63 years that I've had to come back to an elected commission time and again, as well as write multiple emails because of the lack of proper oversight and enforcement of the commission's own mandates. In fact, tonight I had to leave a celebration of life for my friends whose son just died at the age of 33 of cancer to be here for this 5-minute opportunity to speak yet again. As we're aware from public records and the videos I sent and the emails that I sent from May 9th and April 25th of 2024, Norse Environmental Rep. Maureen Harold, representing Mr. Gull, files an NOI to plant a total of 40 trees, 28 shrubs, 4 feet, 12 10-foot oaks. They found the larger trees and they were ready to go. That being said, nothing was planted between May and September. Why? Where was the oversight? I finally contacted Mr. Cohen in September about my concerns around this. Again, where was the proper oversight by the Conservation Administrator and Commission to get them in? At the 2/13 meeting, Mr. Cohen asked Ms. Coleman if the plantings were in. Ms. Coleman stated that he put a lot of plantings in and that they are all in. She went on to say that they're smaller ones, but I'm very happy with the amount, 25 one-foot saplings. How did that translate from what was agreed upon by all parties with the commission and Mr. Gull's representative? It's now my understanding that the proper plantings were indeed found on 5/24 of 2024, but the order was never placed. So all summer, they sat there when I was wondering the order was never placed. It was too late in the fall for those plantings to go in. Again, where was the oversight? And how convenient, the growing season's over and none of that was put in. How did the Conservation Administrator, as far as I'm concerned, have a conversation or placate the owner by putting in, where did 25 one-foot saplings come in? And if it was discussed with the chair or the assistant chair, I'm not sure in terms of open meeting laws how that translated from 40 trees and shrubs to 25 saplings. I've sent you pictures. There's nothing there but concrete blocks and debris and sticks that are the one-foot saplings. And then to turn it on me at the last meeting and say, well, you said you wanted them in. 25 saplings does not cut it. Where is the oversight by this commission and the follow-through? If I wasn't here coming, it would have all been rubber stamped and life would have went on. If you want to be an elected commission, do your job. Talk is cheap. Mr. Cohen, you made it clear that while the engineer is in charge of all the technical aspects of the project, it is the responsibility of this commission to make sure that the wetlands are addressed, so on and so forth, proper restoration has been implemented, and that we, of a commission, has been very lenient. That's for sure. I agree with this statement that this needs to stop now. It is now the spring of 2025, and the time for talk is over. It's time for this commission and the administrator to make sure that the proper trees and shrubs are put in so that it doesn't negatively impact myself or my neighbors. Lastly, Mr. Kelly, on May 9th, strongly urged the commission to look at the detailed plans for the retention wall. The commission opted not look at them because it was supposed to be a cinder block wall, less than 4 feet. That being said, Mr. Debs, of course, said that, I would prefer to see a professional engineer look at things, but it was moved forward. I questioned the contractor, Mr. Bonanno, and the engineer, Mr. Dragani, as to why it was now a stone wall with all the gaps. I was concerned about water. I was told non-degradable bioplastics put in, all will be well. The email I sent you, Mr. Dragani, said that, nope, we didn't follow the commission's mandate that Mr. Debs stressed, and the other gentleman, Ed, I don't know if he's on the board anymore, I haven't seen him the last couple of meetings, that it will indeed be 6 inches. It's 2 inches. He gave me the explanation why it's 2 inches, but that he can move it to 6. But there needs to be input from the commission. Mr. Dragani said the wall should probably be mortared, because I sent you pictures of all the streaming coming out, if you looked at it, of the water, and this wasn't the heaviest of winters. And Mr. Bonanno, the contractor, gave me the reasons why it doesn't need to be mortared. So I'm asking the commission to figure it out. I know Lucy and Eileen Coleman have been coming out, and the oversight, well, how did the wall get by everybody? That's what I'd like to know. Because it's not what you said it was, and going in and checking on it in the midnight hour, like in April, like to sign off is a bit too late. So at this point, I'm going to say, once again, actions speak louder than words, and I'm insisting that this project is done correctly, and the bond better be high enough by this commission. I know you've been lenient, you said it several times. Well, in terms of getting the job done correctly, as you're elected to, please make sure there's an ample bond established. The wall is fixed properly, so I don't have floods. Come out and look at it, not in April, come out now. And the expectation is that we will see 10 to 12-foot oaks that were ready to go. And Eileen said couldn't find them in September. They were out of them, of course, by the fall. They were there for 4 months and nobody planted them. Get the saplings are sticks. So please get the proper trees in, get the proper shrubs in, stop talking. It's a bit ridiculous when you look at the videos and what everybody says and then how it changes back and forth. Do the right thing, do what you were elected to do, please, and get this job done right. Thank you.
Okay, just to offer you a clarification.
I really don't want it. I'm done. I'm actually leaving.
That's fine. All right, we'll move right on.
I've been here 6 times. I want to see the job done correctly. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Maybe somebody else wants to hear?
Anybody? Oh,
We'll appreciate it if you have something to say.
yeah, I do have something to say. Okay, first of all, the review of the meetings on video are not what we adhere to. We adhere to what was exactly stipulated in the state permit that we issued and the wetlands permit under our wetlands bylaw. Whatever that says is what we follow. That's the default. What was on the plan is what we follow, okay? Mr. Hickey is frustrated, clearly, I understand it, over the fact that the owner, we don't control someone who's not doing it when he thinks it should be done, or we think it should be done. It's up to him, okay? We expected during that spring planting season last year, we expected that there would be 28 shrubs, 3 to 4 feet tall, it's in the order that we issued, 7 oaks, 10 to 12 feet tall, 2 dogwoods, and 2 silver maples, each 7 to 8 feet tall, which is, of course, a lot of plants. They didn't do it at the time. It wasn't ready. There was all kinds of debris and all kinds of stuff, and they didn't accelerate it to clean it up so you could plant. So now we enter the fall. In the fall, they approached us and said, now we can't get things that tall because there's only a certain number of actual trees that are actually that tall. And they communicated with the office and said, would you accept, we can do it in the fall, smaller trees, 4 to 6 feet tall, which is the normal height you buy the trees at, typically. There's a lot more of them. So there's still some you could buy. And Eileen, you can correct me if I get this wrong, Eileen contacted the vice chair, Bill Boyven, and myself as chair, and said, well, what do you think? And we basically concluded as a group, okay, well, it seemed more important to get the trees in and get them established so they'd already have a head start for the spring if you plant more of them. In other words, not just what we said, but X amount more, and we approved some amount more than what was in the order. Okay, again, that owner did not do it. So our position is that it reverts back to the original order with the height of the trees that are supposed to go in, okay, and the numbers of trees that are listed in the order, and that's the position. At least we haven't, I don't know if we have talked about it as a commission, but I believe that our conservation administrator has sent them that notice, that the thing that's in force is the original order. You didn't do what you said, which was to plant a larger number of, yes, more modest-sized trees in order to get them in last fall. That was not done. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing about the wall, and I'll let others on the commission speak for themselves, because we haven't discussed this. But the plan is what the plan says. The plan says that the earth will slope down so there's 6 inches, the wall is 6 inches above where the earth meets it. So there's some room for snow to kind of melt and hit the wall and so forth and things like that. That was the idea behind it. I mean, yes, there's a fence there that's going to block snow from going into Mr. Hickey's yard. And yes, there's a wall and there's drainage underneath. But nevertheless, the plan calls for 6 inches above where the level of the soil hits the wall. It was right up to the top. We complained about it, they removed only 2 inches, and my position is, the plan says this, and that's what it should happen. And we're not gonna issue a certificate of compliance until that's done. So, that's where things stand. I'd like to, because I've sort of dominated the time, I'd like to go to the commission to see if anyone else has any comments. Anybody on the right? Yes, Sarah?
It may interest Mr. Hickey to know, and I've sent this to Eileen today, that I did a little research and found there is a company in Maryland. They supply trees to the Blue Sky Broad Institute project. They sell just the size of oaks that would be needed for this project. They're $300 each. There would be an additional charge for freight because it's shipping from Maryland, but the entire price tag would be under $4,000 to get 10 trees of the size Mr. Hickey wants. I think that if the developer did that, it would be a good faith effort to meet Mr. Hickey where he's at. So I propose that as the solution. Enough with these little tiny trees. Planting little tiny trees ahead of time, a 2.5-inch tree is already many years ahead of those little tiny trees. I think that would be a better solution.
They were
That's my
never
opinion.
supposed to be little tiny trees. We said 4 to 6 feet.
Oh,
No,
That is a
originally,
very
the original,
big tree.
the original said 10 to 12.
Yes, and the
Right.
agreement was 4 to 6, but that
If
wasn't
they-
what went in.
If they were planted in the fall, and he
Mr.
didn't,
Hickey
and he
was
didn't
right.
do
As
it.
far as I know, only little tiny things went in,
Yeah,
and that
well,
wasn't what was agreed.
You can get these. I talked to a man on the phone today who was like ready to take my order. So no excuses about, oh, sorry, we can't find them. That's all I have to add.
And actually, that's a very good price for the tree.
I have the contact information.
Around
so
here, you
whoever
would
says
pay,
reach out to me.
around here, you actually, the going price is
So I
500
have
to
to
550
sell
per
the
tree.
guy who will-
Okay, so that's the story on the trees. Anybody else? Rob, anything further on this? No. Okay, on the left, anyone want to say anything?
I just want to say that that's why, Mr. Hickey makes all these valid points. That's why we denied the application for a certificate of completion, because it is not done the way it's supposed to be done. And we won't issue it and deal with the bond until it is done to everyone's satisfaction, under the application and the plan as it was submitted.
All right, now, as far as the wall goes, the plan, it's very clear what it says on the plan, and if it's not in compliance, it should be. Okay, so that's the story. Mr. Hickey has brought this to our attention a number of times. But we are not the ones that buy the plants, we are not the ones that install the plants, okay? We're relying on the applicant and their engineer and their wetland scientist to do what has been permitted. Okay?
Would I add one just final thing?
Absolutely.
They can't really buy and plant the trees in the height of summer. They weren't going to take well, and they can't plant them in winter either. So really, it was going to be a spring or fall thing.
That's why I've now been in touch with the person who's gonna buy the plants, and they're gonna go in, hopefully, within the well, okay, not the next few weeks, but maybe April, May.
Okay, so we've probably spent more than enough on public comment.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating. Thank you to whoever's online as well. All right, so next is, I think we have minutes. We have approval of minutes for February 27th. Is there anything to discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Excuse me, Larry?
Yes?
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
This is, I'm sorry, this is Rich Costa again. I only spoke for 30 seconds, and I don't have a lot to talk about. I just want clarity on one thing that was spoken by a board member there. So there's 10 trees for $3,000. What size were those trees?
2.5-inch caliper.
How tall?
Perfect.
I don't
So
know.
those are gonna be like 10,
Big.
yeah, those probably gotta be,
A
they're not the
1-inch
saplings
caliper
that were
is 6 feet,
delivered.
so
So those are 10.
Yeah, a 1-inch diameter caliper is 6 feet tall, so 2.5 inches is a pretty big tree.
Okay.
Before he
Thank you. I don't wanna take any more time for the board. I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted that clarity. Thank you.
Well, hang on a second.
This is just
Sure.
an option. No one has agreed to do this yet. I'm just,
No, he will have to do bigger plants, but it's just not necessarily going to be from this place.
don't take that as the gospel truth yet. It's just a proposal.
They will be bigger trees,
Sure.
yes.
Again, I want to just step back. We talked about this in length months ago, and we agreed to 12 trees and 28 shrubs, and those trees were going to be 10 to 12 feet. So I hope we don't go back to the plans that we disagreed upon back then, months ago, and came up with the 12 trees to be at least 10 to 12 feet. So I'm hoping those will be going in. There shouldn't be any more discussion because we discussed it and we agreed to 10 to 12 trees. So I hope we're not going backwards and trying to go with smaller trees.
I don't think there's anything that anyone said here that indicates we're going backwards, sir.
Okay, all right. I don't want to take any more of your time. You have other things to talk about. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your time. Okay, again, I'd entertain a motion for approving of the minutes for February 27th.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, that's
I didn't read them, so I didn't see them, so I'm going to abstain.
501.
I missed it. I just didn't catch up on my emails, that's all.
Oh, no, Eagle-eyed Bill missed it.
I know it.
All right, so, okay, next, we have a continued public hearing. It's a notice of intent for 114 Wynn Street. It's the Burlington Public Schools. They would like to convert the backfields at Marshall Simons Middle School into an artificial turf field. It has a DEP number 122-713.
Good evening, Arson Hambart, Zoom Industry Engineering. It's very nice to see you all, and I just want to begin by saying I appreciate the work you are all doing and the professionalism with which you are doing it. On a similar board, and sometimes it can be a thankless job, and I just want to say I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We could use that. I've got appreciation right now.
So, since we last met, there was quite a bit of feedback. We have begun the process of making those changes. And as I wanted to come and give you an update of where we are, what we've done, and what we still have to do. We were on site today to complete two test pits. There were 4 borings previously completed. The soil report was delivered to us today, so we're uploading that to the drive. And then we did 2 additional test pits, which were witnessed by your agent from the Board of Health. We uploaded the documentation of that, and we'll continue to fill out the form and submit that as well, the soil logs. We staked out the corners of the proposed field. There's 8 corners with the angles marked out. If and when you are out there, if you see it, there's an additional 6-foot walkway that would be on the perimeter of that marked out
Do you
area.
want us to share any of the plans while you're talking? Would it be helpful?
Sure. There's one plan that we updated that is in the drive, if you're comfortable sharing that. If not, we can pull up the original. There
You can
was.
Continue, Lucy will just find it.
Okay. There was, after we did that, we walked the site. Now that the ice has melted, we wanted to do a little more investigation. The record plans did not have utilities in those resource areas, but the GIS map showed some drain lines and some sewer lines, which during the winter, we weren't able to find. And I really didn't suspect from seeing this, if you go back to that last one, actually. Sorry.
The TFH, yeah.
No problem. Yep. So from that image, we didn't suspect that the drain lines and the sewer lines would be in the resource areas, and the resource.
The thing is so small, I'm not sure what we're looking at, to be honest.
Let me go up here.
Maybe you can just orient us where we are now
Sure.
on the field.
It is pale, and just to be fair, this isn't something that they created. This is a screenshot that Tom Hayes made for us. This is Tom's, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm sure you would have made it darker had you,
Actually, I did superimpose this on our plan. It's in the drive.
Right.
That might be easier. It'll give us
Isn't
an
that what this is?
orientation. This is just the
Oh, okay.
information that was sent to us.
Which one do you want us to open then?
In the main body of the drive, if you go up one folder, there should be a plan. C5 layout.
oh, yeah.
This one might be too big to open.
Well, okay, it's also, we did download it onto the G Drive too.
Yes, I don't have access to it over here.
Oh, let me see if I can.
Yep.
In case there's an issue. C5 layout with utilities, I can share. And you can continue talking.
Thank you.
Once it opens.
And I apologize that I was just uploading information as we completed them or received them, and so some of this came in very late and right before the meeting, so I apologize for not giving you enough time to review that. So we went into the resource areas, and we're documenting what could be cleaned up there. There's some rubbish, there's some metals, things that are been dumped there over the time. And I noticed the water was running into a hole very quickly. So when I got there, we noticed it's a concrete pipe with a hole in it that has developed over the winter or during the time. And I put the video inside, and it's a very clean pipe. There's water flowing through it. And then it clicked that there is a drainage line here. So there's a manhole here, and there's a buried catch basin in this wetlands, and there's an outlet here.
You might want to come up to this drawing up here, because it's hard to see that.
There we go.
So the existing walkway continues here and goes to this road here. In that walkway, there's a manhole, and then there's a line that goes to right in the middle of what our wetland specialist mapped out as wetlands, but that's supposed to be a catch basin. It was buried, it is buried, we need to expose it, but we're able to find part of the line that's taking on the water. So and then it outlets here per the record plan, and the GIS shows stream or wetlands continuing from there, which we expected. So when our specialist mapped this area, we were quite surprised. It wasn't expected. And so what we realized is happening is this catch basin is buried, clogged, something. And all this area is just filling up with water and is developed wetland plants. The soil, there is hydrology developed because it's also flowing over the pipe, but also the soil was filled. When we did the test pits, the buried wetlands that's under there that was historically filled is over 5 feet below the surface. There's a buried organic layer with the groundwater level below it. This is unique to us. We've never encountered this, so I'm giving it to you as we learn about it. The drive has some photo documentations that I think would be helpful. But I suspect that if this structure is cleaned out and the water continues flowing, that this is all going to dry out, which it was already a lot drier than it used to be. We were able to walk there without any issues, without sinking. And this area was a lot more, it was flooded compared to what it used to be.
So the source of hydrology right now is, A, it's blocked up, that manhole or whatever.
Yeah.
And B, is there any other sources of hydrology for that area?
So the structure is blocked up, but then at a bend, frost or whatever separated the pipe, so water is now flowing, and since it started doing that, this area is a lot less wet. But there is some as this has filled up over time and flown down, it has created hydrology. If you look at it, you can tell, with ups and downs, but you can tell generally the water makes its way there.
Any other questions from the commission? We might as well talk about each item here.
Sure, sure.
It's been plugged up long enough to create a wetland.
Is there seepage water that is feeding the hydrology of the wetland, or?
So there's a hill here, the water flows down, and normally it would have flown faster. I think it would have drained out faster if that catch basin was exposed. You know, I think it's staying longer, so the plants have developed. The soil is of question because it's fill soils. So we opened up 2 test pits roughly here and here, and they have redox in them, but that's from the fill soil that was excavated from wherever they took it out and it had naturally redox in it. And then we hit the organic layer, that's buried, which was the historic wetlands.
Can you just say that again? Do you mind?
No.
Sorry, I just wasn't sure I
Not at all.
understood that about the fill.
So,
You were saying redox was in the fill.
What's
Yes.
that term?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Redoxamorphic features, so when the water table goes up and down, it takes iron out, and the highest point it gets to, it deposits it, and it goes back down, so you have a rust stains. That's what we use to indicate the highest level of water, or the mean annual high water line. It's odd that it's in the fill. It could be a perched water table sitting on top, or it could be wherever they excavated was a previous wetland or wet soils that then they filled there, and it still has those features. The photos will be really helpful, I think, once we get to it. But it's kind of, so it'll be up to, I guess, this board, DEP, to decide, you know, in my opinion, this has occurred only because of the lack of the maintenance on the drainage, and that it would go away.
But we have had situations in the past, I can picture the high school, for example, where there are created wetlands over the years from runoff from a parking lot or whatever. You end up creating a wetland, and we protect those as if there were any other wetland. So in my personal feeling, opening up that manhole, you're intentionally draining a wetland, which is established as a wetland now.
So
It's obviously been plugged for a long enough time if there's wetland vegetation in there.
I think timing of it would be important. I believe the regulations state that if it's post-1996, that's considered a drainage structure and subject to maintenance and cleaning and so on. If it was established before that, it has more protective rights. But that goes to ponds, drainage ponds and drainage features. This is a utility line.
Now, is the wetland we're talking about the one that is that part of the wetland that's going to be filled and then replicated?
Yes, and if you remember when I came first, I said it's kind of an odd wetland. It does not really contributory. It doesn't seem to really be part of the main body, and it wasn't really functioning as, you know, the wetland should. It was just, it had the features. It had water, or it had soils, it was wet, it had plants, but it wasn't really truly what I would consider a wetland. But I'm not a wetland scientist, but that's what our specialist told us as well.
So the commission could, regardless of whether it's a wetland now or is going to dry up, the commission could consider, if it's an area that is to be replicated, that you take the total area of that area, that's whether it dries up or not, and we replicate it somewhere else, so that there's no net loss.
Because either way, you're destroying a wetland, either by filling it or draining it.
Right, so you could just consider possibly a replication somewhere else, maybe on the, sort of the western, down by the western edge, down on the left-hand drawing, the western side.
Yeah, there's some locations where we can do replication. I guess my question would be, would it may be prudent to discuss with DPW and see what they want to do with the utility line, if they want to maintain it, clean it, replace the grate. And then I guess then it's worth a discussion with DEP because we're filling this area, and if it's wetlands and it's in the outstanding water resource area, ORW, then it requires 2 additional permits, one through the state and one through Army Corps of Engineers. If it's not truly a wetland, it would not require that. And if it does go through Army Corps, it's typically 6 months to a year process. That's-
And how many
that's what our
square, how many square feet are we
specialists-
actually talking about at this?
1,400 square feet.
Isn't that because of the outstanding waters designation, though?
Yes, dredging or filling within the ORW, so within wetlands in a ORW. If we're out of the wetlands, or there is no wetlands, then we're not in
We
the,
will have to look more into that.
Definitely.
They will and we will.
please.
But in the meantime, I will ask DPW a bit more about whether we have some records about what might be.
That would be great, and it might have some dates on it, and could be helpful.
All right.
There's also a sewer line out there. That's on the opposite side, it's on the stream side. It's the one, so the orange is drainage, which we saw here, and this here is sewer, and it crosses the stream. It's right on the edge of it. I don't know if it's relative, but there were some things that might be worth looking into in that area as well, for maintenance and making sure nothing is leaching out or affecting it. But perhaps this could be an effort to improve the area through various departments as well as developing the site.
Okay, and that is, what is that you call that? Is that a sewer line?
There is a sewer line.
A sewer line.
We were unable to actually pop the manhole because we believed it's sealed,
It's bolted.
Bolted
There's a
down.
bolt to.
so we couldn't physically inspect it, but we could inspect around it.
All right, so,
Is that coming from the school, or do you know where it's coming from?
It's coming from the neighborhood and it's going to another neighborhood, not from the school.
That's probably from, what's the circle again?
I'm not sure.
Locust. Oh, then, sorry, Locust, then the other.
Something circle. Probably from there. That's it, Angela Circle, thank you.
okay, so we've added 2 levels of complexity.
Yes,
All
sorry.
right, good. So let's move on.
Well, that's just for starters.
Have you got anything that's a little more straightforward?
We have uploaded an operation and maintenance plan, but that might be subject to change based on what we're doing. We also,
We have the geotech report, which we received today around 5 o'clock, and we uploaded that around 5:17.
A geotechnical report?
Yeah, the
Yes.
geotech report that.
they
was
conducted
requested.
4 borings and then completed about a 40-page full report of.
In case you think that we're getting notifications when these uploads happen, we're not. You have to
Oh.
tell us that they're there, otherwise we have no
Oh,
idea.
sorry about
So
that.
we
Yep.
thought,
Yeah.
if you thought that we knew about all this stuff earlier, we didn't.
Okay, sorry about that.
'Cause it was
I will do better to make sure you receive
Yeah.
that.
And does the
everybody-
report give the locations of where those borings were done?
Yes.
Okay.
And it shows the groundwater at 7 feet, 7 feet, 14 feet, and 5.5 feet below the surface. The 14 is on the hill, so that's understandable. The other 3, the other 2 are 7 feet deep. That's including the closest one to the corner where we are. The groundwater is at 7 feet below where we're saying it's wetlands.
Did they estimate seasonally high groundwater from those borings?
Well, because, I believe they did. And I believe it's because we hit the organic layer and then there's
Okay, so that's in the report.
laying underneath that, yes.
All right, okay.
And it's definitely on our test pits as well, so that's kind of confirmed there. And then we looked into the requirements for riverfront area. So there is a maximum allowed of 5,000 square feet or 10% impervious area within the riverfront. Currently, the track, so currently you have approximately 151,000 square feet of riverfront area because of the town's bylaw. So the state does not provide riverfront for intermittent street, but the town does. So we're looking at it per the state's regulations, which state that we can have 5,000 square feet of impervious or 10%, whichever is greater. At 151,000 square feet of riverfront, where we can have as much as 15,000 square feet of impervious, but the track already takes up about 11,000 square feet of that. So if we were to do the perimeter walkway and the emergency access, we would be 6,000 over. Now, the options would be either maybe pervious pavement or eliminating the emergency access way, or waiving that requirement, because this is really not a state requirement, it's additional requirement for the town, but I would assume it's up to the.
Okay, anybody have a comment on that one? Then, if no one has a comment, I'll just ask. Can the track be made out of some kind of pervious material?
Yeah, we could do pervious pavement or.
So the track
ADA
going around it
accessible.
would be some kind of pervious material? And would that get you within the 15,000 square feet of impervious allowed?
Well, he's saying impervious, but it's alteration, right?
No,
Yes.
I believe it's impervious surface. We're looking at that earlier today.
$5,000 alteration, because I had taken it as notes for something else.
I'll look at that and send you, if that's the case, then nothing can be done in the area.
Right.
Period. Neither could have the track
Right.
or the turf that was
Well,
built.
we have said all along, there's a lot of tricky things that you're going to have to,
Yeah, but I will have to look at that. I'm almost certain that it would only be degraded areas.
degraded areas.
Degraded, meaning no topsoil.
There are no degraded areas on this site, this is an undeveloped site.
I mean, the 10% for degraded areas. Meaning impervious or, but I will look into that and send some further information.
Yeah, I mean, the regulation essentially says, I think, Eileen, I think you're right, it's 5,000 square feet or 10% of the area of the amount of riverfront area, and that's to determine no significant impact. That's the definition of no significant impact. So I think it would make sense that it's disturbance, but you need to check that, it may be wrong.
I will look into it.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So that was the other hurdle we're looking into, and the rest, we're still working on the comments. We're looking into pitching the walkway towards the turf so that it will, A, retain any infill, B, the runoff will go into the turf, into the filter material and get treatment that way.
All right, and I know we're not discussing any details of an alternative analysis by virtue of the fact it's not done yet, but have you made some progress on looking at it?
We do have the cost breakdown between the various infill materials that we put in the drive.
Yeah, have you seen a report, December 2018, from the Toxic Use Reduction Institute?
Not off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
All right, well, here's a copy. Here's my copy. I can always print it out again.
I'll grab it.
All right, and when you go through it, let me see here. I did some research, and when you go through it, they go through Tiachrome rubber, elastomer rubber, thermoplastic elastomer, waste shoe materials, acrylic-coated sand, mineral or plant-based materials like zeolites, cork, and coconut fiber, and walnut shells.
And I see TPE and EPDM, which are some of the ones we've
Yeah,
evaluated
yeah.
as well.
And I'm not telling you what the alternative analysis shows, but first of all, there's not in-depth research on most of it, number one. Number two, there's lots of contaminant issues with most of them. I mean, for example, thermoplastic elastomer has carbon black, which is a carcinogen in it. but it has lower VOCs than thiachrome. I mean, you're looking at, I mean, I looked at it and said, well, what does all this mean? This one has a little lower amounts of this, higher amounts of this, lower amounts of this. I didn't see anything that stuck out as, well, this stuff's totally benign, it would work just fine. Honestly, I didn't see that.
I agree that I think they all have risk. I was at a seminar where, and I don't want to disparage coconut husk infill or any other product, but the discussion was that this particular one that was inspected came from outside the United States, and certain pesticides and herbicides were legal there, and then when that was placed, it contained materials here that were not allowable. So there are certainly things to
Not
be
to
concerned about all
mention,
of them.
there are, it's not common, but some people have allergies to coconut fiber and walnut shell, unfortunately. So, I mean, they all have issues. I'm not trying to predetermine what your alternative analysis says, but there was no clear winner when I looked at that report, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So,
And I think our analysis was focused on, the various sites that we looked at that could be developed, the size of the field, the cost associated with the different infills, and we're just in the process of putting all that together into one.
yeah,
one
I mean,
packet.
anybody want to comment on this at all? All right, I'll just say that this alternative analysis is a classic example of where a comparison table for all the materials down the left-hand side with some text attached to it, and on the right-hand side is the logistics, the cost factor, the technical aspects of it. I mean, the things that determine whether it's practicable. And those are the criteria that are in the riverfront regulations. And, I'm not telling you how to present it, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to see the school department pay for this enormous study when there might be a more succinct way of just presenting the alternatives and having it, make it meaningful.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is there any more homework other than what we have going on for us?
We've got homework to look at the stuff you sent in at 5 o'clock, so, and it's quite extensive.
So it's a safe bet to continue to the next meeting to discuss that, and we'll try to send anything and everything we can preemptively.
Or at least just let us know it's in the drive so that we know it's there.
My
Do
apologies.
you want to go to the next meeting?
Yes, please.
If there isn't anything else.
Does anyone have anything else they want to comment on this?
One thing, could grass please be part of your alternatives analysis? I understand it's a much shorter playing season, and that's a huge problem, but maybe compared to the other problems, it wouldn't look so bad. Just like to be able to rule that out for sure.
It absolutely should be. And exactly, drainage amendments, size. Yeah, we mentioned that the last time.
Also, the other thing that is unresolved, and there's two issues that are interrelated. One is we talked briefly about testing, and I have nothing really to discuss about it, except that if, sometimes, we used to do a lot of testing before you came to the commission, many years ago. We used to test for a lot of things out of the infrastructure, the things that remove the pollution, the solids and so forth. And we did a lot of tests. And I eventually got the impression that the amount of testing we were doing wasn't really focused right. I mean, it wasn't like focused and targeted. And so I think we need to have a discussion on what we're trying to achieve if we're going to do any testing of discharge from the field and what we're looking for. And the thing that's unresolved is the environmental health issues associated with the health of the wetland, I think. And, we have been referred to this 6-PDD quinone, and I don't even know if you can, I assume you can test for it, but I mean, I don't know anything about it. but it is supposedly it's highly toxic. So anyways, I guess I'm just thinking out loud, so I should probably stop.
Problem, we've done some research on that. I think DEP is going to evaluate the 6 ppdq. The EPA is. Further, it wasn't something that they focused on in the previous studies. They weren't concerned about it. Now that it's raised some issues, there's been one study, from what I understand, that has raised issues where it's affecting salmon. And so they're looking further into it, but in the meantime, it is not banned or there are no restrictions on the material. Remember.
Something to be discussed.
I believe it's also within the.
Eileen, do you have, or Lucy, you have any comments on this?
Within the commission's jurisdiction to limit pollution broadly, regardless of specific definition.
What was that, Lucy?
I'm verifying her, like.
We have to be careful about,
Sure,
just how we say
yeah.
that. So I just
Yeah.
want to think
That's
about
why I'm saying it
what we're going to
quietly.
say. But I just want to point out to everybody that, yes, I know that you're concerned about the contents of the artificial turf itself, but other factors here that they're talking about impervious surfaces 25 feet from a stream and and structures within a wetland. So there's sort of other factors to just, I'm sure you weren't forgetting it or anything. I'm just saying.
I
That's just
probably
not-
was forgetting.
That's not
That's
just
fine.
focus on the.
But I think one of the big things is like, it's the material, like that's the big thing is like to Larry's point, it's the material that's part of that. Like, that's why I think you're like saying grass is one of the big things is like having the proper drainage. 'Cause that stuff could end up, and I think that's the biggest, I think everybody's in agreement. Nobody's denying that basically like, you know, you want to make sure, I mean, my kids play there for soccer, lacrosse, you know, and everybody's in agreement that you want to come up with the best solution. But I think you got to make sure it's within the proper boundaries of like, you know, so I think that's, you know, why it's, you know, it takes multiple meetings, like you said, you run another board, so I think that's the big thing, is to come to figure out that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
And it is a difficult site, yeah.
Sure. It's a process.
Bob would know at the high school.
Also, last time we talked about inconsistency in rainfall data being used and the curve number values. Are you folks still going to take a look at that?
Yeah, it's on our list.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get out later, probably even before April, but depending on the weather, to verify the,
That would be great, and if we could schedule a site walk, that might be useful.
yeah, you suggested even meeting somebody from DEP. That's a good idea, if you can do that.
I'll ask them to come out, see if they will.
Yep.
You know, I'd love for you guys to see the drain line and what's happening there. I think it'll help visualize everything.
What is the status of the flagging?
Well, it's been flagged, and as I just said, we don't typically approve delineations during winter. We usually wait till April, and I was just saying, if the weather holds, we'll probably get to be able to do that later in March. But one thing we were waiting for is for them to test the field itself to see if the wetland line needed to be extended. And I think you're suggesting it doesn't,
Wetlands line.
that the wetland, we were wondering whether the wetland was actually in the field itself, further into the field.
Oh,
We were?
I was.
so it's exactly per our plan.
Okay.
Could I add, I think I'm adding to what you said, Eileen. When we were out there,
Yeah.
I was wondering about a couple of flags that seemed to be at the same elevation, but they were moved in somewhat. Remember that area? It seemed like the flags were, there's no explanation as to why 2 or 3 flags, maybe a couple of flags, were in a location when they should have been brought out a little bit, right at the corner, sort of right past the corner as you go.
I mean, I think if Eileen and our wetland specialist can walk in and
Yeah,
take a look, and I'm happy to be there, I don't know what, I'm not aware of that.
okay, yeah, because we haven't brought it up before.
Yeah, we'll get back out in the field.
Okay,
Yep.
we'll look at it again, okay, and discuss it.
Just want to let the chair know, I didn't, no votes taken, but I did watch the video of the last meeting.
All right, good, that's great. Okay, I think that's probably enough for today.
Can I ask one question, please, through the chair?
Yeah.
Could I ask for clarification on the request for the comparison for grass field versus turf? So would that be a comparison versus the existing grass field or replacing it with a new grass field?
Trying to get as close to the project that you want, except using grass instead of artificial turf. Like, could you have twin grass fields in that orientation that you're proposing? Is that just?
Is it off base to say that we don't want the grass field? I mean, 'cause
interested
I think
in
the
like-
project hovers
Yes.
around a turf field, right, as like the main focus of this project. With it already being grass field, there'd be less inclination to want to upgrade it per se. I mean, we would view, personally, in the athletics department, would view the turf as an upgrade for the playability factor. So I guess, you know,
That would be part of your alternative analysis. You would put that in your alternative analysis as to why you don't
Sure.
think that grass is a good alternative.
Yeah, I don't know. Other than the obvious
saying
that
he
it's
doesn't want
squishy for longer, less playing time, are there other bummers? I mean, does the actual cost of mowing and herbicides outweigh like the environmental benefits of it being a natural substance? I'd like to know.
We
Okay.
can certainly
Yep.
provide that, and there's, we'll put a playability factor, how many games you're able to get on grass versus
Right.
synthetic.
That would be really useful.
Yeah, well, that actually,
That's not really relevant to us, though.
Oh,
well, yeah, because the purpose of the project is part of the evaluation for alternatives. Okay, and practicable and substantially equivalent. It includes consideration of costs, existing technology, proposed use, and logistics. So you could have those four things, and you can comment and do whatever you want for any of that, but, you know, there's definitions of each of that in the regulations, and I'm just, I mean, a grass field is certainly viable, but it may have some limitations, is all it is.
I'm also wondering about a grass field with different soil or drainage amendments very specifically. So if they went in there, and I'm not an engineer by any means, but you can increase the drainage in different ways with different materials or by putting in perforated pipes in the soil itself. And what would that look like cost-wise and construction-wise in comparison to both a regular grass field and an artificial turf field? Because maybe that's a happy medium, and I think I would like to see it. I don't know if you would all like to see.
We have grass fields with sand-based root zones and high-end drainage systems underneath. Unfortunately, they require, and I'll put this in the analysis, but the maintenance that's associated with that is so extensive that you would need staff like Fenway Park or high-level colleges to maintain those. But again, I will put that all in writing and
Sure.
provide the documentation.
Sure.
And I think that's, to answer your question, I think that's part of the analysis you would do. You may ending up coming up with the project you have, but it's having those alternatives to evaluate so you can look back and say that we did it. That's the purpose of real analysis.
I mean,
appreciate the clarification, thank you.
I mean, a lot of what you just said boils down to cost. If you have to do more maintenance and more upkeep, it kind
Yes,
of
more.
boils down to cost, and the regulations say that cost has to be in the range of being reasonable versus prohibitive, is the kind of the language they use.
Mhm. And if you have to resod every 3 to 5 years versus.
Or staff like Fenway Park.
Yeah.
just knowing it's completely infeasible would make it an easier decision to be like, well, there really
Yeah,
is no
if-
other way to do it.
I mean, ultimately, we're going to have to justify the final decision of the material you use, even with its negative implications. And we have
Need
to
to
say
know all
that
the
that's the
facts.
best choice that we can make.
Understood.
Okay, I guess we probably have done enough talking for tonight.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, could I have a motion to continue the hearing for the brush field renovation? It's DEP file number,
122-713.
what is it?
122-713.
132-713.
122.
122-713,
So
March
moved,
27th.
to the March 27th meeting.
so moved.
Second, all in favor? 600. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. Have a good evening. You know, when you say you're proposing a field, it doesn't sound complicated, but there seems to be a lot of issues.
There is, but it's,
I mean, I'm kind of surprised at how many issues are associated with this.
I mean, yeah, but a big factor here is the location,
Right.
you know?
And for the record, that field, even before that, was like, what is, to your point, is like, I would question, aside from wetlands, it was like, when it wasn't, as, I don't know, it was like, dead as like a couple times, like even times when like grass was like, we have water bans and stuff, that area was like, I mean, my grass was dead, but it wasn't like, there was still some life. That area back there was like barren during like the water ban season. Like it
How
was
long
like,
ago?
like probably 3-4 years ago, back when.
The
like,
really
water-
dry summer
Oh,
when the
yeah.
mill pond was like,
Oh, yeah. And that was like, I mean, I could walk it on my grass and it'd be still some life in it, but like you'd walk to that back field and it was like,
Okay,
it was barren.
all right, we should probably get going. Sadie, when I say any comments to the left, that includes you too. So you don't have to, you're part of the left, and they're right. Okay,
the right way.
yeah, okay. Yes, you're left wing. Okay. All right, next we have a continued public hearing. This is a notice of intent, 7A Street, American Maplewood Properties LLC. It involves material storage and crushed stone parking areas. I believe the DEP number is pending. All right, so obviously, please introduce everybody that's here with you and what their role is and so forth.
Sure.
Sure, Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management.
Sure.
My name is Andrew Pandolf with Vineyard Engineering and Environmental Services. We were the land surveyor on the project.
All right, great, okay.
All right,
All right, so this is a continued public hearing, and maybe the first thing before we go to our staff is you tell us any summary of what's been done since the last time.
yep. So,
Eileen, you want? Is this?
I was only just going to say, we opened it, but they weren't available, so we continued it immediately the last time, so they haven't actually addressed it.
Oh, they haven't, that's right, they haven't addressed
So
this.
he's going to now.
So this is like an initial presentation.
this would be our first presentation, yes.
The floor's yours.
All right.
Go right ahead.
So Vineyard Engineering got me involved. This was initially an enforcement order. The applicant purchased the property roughly middle of last year and began to move some equipment, some fill piles and such into this vacant lot known as 7A. I thought I was really cool. I'm going to have my laser pointer, but the screen just eats it up. So,
Maybe that one.
That
no, I
would be-
tried them all. Let's try them all from my.
You can stand up and point
Yeah.
the old-fashioned way.
And I'll get that, I'll get to there. So 7A, 7A Street is that lot that's really centered right there. Vine Brook is on the left side of the screen. The banks of Vine Brook are clearly defined. The banks are armored with large boulders, so the top of bank is very distinct. It is survey located. It is a perennial stream. We have the 100-foot riverfront area line prominently marked on the plan. It basically splits the lot. And obviously, the 200-foot zone is somewhere in A Street or beyond. So the entire property is encumbered by riverfront area. It's also encumbered by FEMA Zone A, 100-year flood elevation. We were working on the older FEMA maps, the ones that are actually still in jurisdictional, which said the FEMA line was elevation 125. And Eileen has alerted us that there are preliminary maps set for release later, apparently later this year, and the DEP is encouraging applicants to utilize the preliminary data. The preliminary data shows that the 100-year flood elevation will be revised to 126.5, which would mean this entire property is now encumbered by Zone A, as opposed to, I'll show you where the 125 contour is. This line here would be the 125, so now all of that area would be encumbered by the FEMA 100-year flood zone. So as I mentioned to you, there was an enforcement order to restore the property to its previous state, and there was a directive to do a restoration plan by December. We spoke with Eileen, and the project morphed more into a restoration and what would be the future uses of the property. So during that time, the restoration was actually occurring. Mr. McDonald had all of the fill piles that were brought in, that they were all removed. There was some concrete forms and such that were towards the center of the property, and they were moved up towards A Street. And so I would say that all of the extraneous material that was brought in has been removed. The only thing remaining in the restoration would be to have seeded it. All of that removal was done, the last I saw the property was just before Thanksgiving, and obviously we weren't going to get anything seeded by that time. So what's remaining here in the springtime is to get the disturbed areas seeded, so we get some ground cover on that.
Okay.
In terms of what we would like to do, Mr. McDonald purchased the property, 9 and 11 A Street, which is the lot right next to it, with the intention, and correct me if I'm misstating, Tim, with the intention of moving, storing some material on the site in conjunction with 9 and 11. So finding out that a lot of this is encumbered by flood zone, we had to modify that situation. So the proposal, after the site's been cleaned up, if we can go back to the site plan. The proposal was to try to utilize this for, that's pretty good right there. Utilize the site, the portion closest to A Street for temporary, at times they'll have to bring in materials, fill or waste product, but excavated material, temporarily store that on the site. There may be some construction forms. There may be some machines that are trailers or such that are stored there. But we would like to use, with this line here, we would basically like to utilize the front portion of the property. And what that does is it gets everything as far away from the river as possible. And we would also like to improve that situation. You saw from some of the photographs that were there, it's without improving the ground surface, it's just going to turn into a muddy mess. So we would like to, that area that I showed you, convert that to a crushed stone driving and storage surface. Now, knowing that this is, now the entire property is encumbered by 100, or about to be encumbered by 100-year flood zone, we have to respect the existing elevation. And so in order to convert that surface to, drivable surface, cleanable surface, we're gonna have to actually excavate. If we wanna have 8 inches of crushed stone, we need to remove 8 inches of soil before we were to place the crushed stone. There's a note to that effect on the site plan. And that way, the 100-year flood elevations are not affected at all. We would, in that manner, Mr. McDonald gets to use the property, frankly, for a use that's, as far back as I can tell, looking at aerial photos, I have photographs, DOT photographs going back to 2003, those are the oldest that I could find, that shows trailers and material on this site. Going forward, there are various times where the aerial photos picked up this continued use. So the property has been in use in this sort of fashion for quite a long time, and we'd just like the ability to continue that sort of use. We are, as I said, we are gonna have to improve the driving surface, but it ends up being an improvement over the current site, moving everything closer to the road. We have reduced the amount of site usage in the riverfront area by about almost 3,000 square feet. Presently, if we go back to the site plan, please.
Do you have a site plan, or do you want me to share it again?
You can go ahead and share it again.
Okay, let me see if I can center it correctly before we get it on there.
The survey located the tree line, and that basically was where Tim had, and that's right through here. Tim had basically occupied what was already kind of a grassy field area. And so we would reduce the amount of usage up to this line again, and then restore this with, I had suggested loam and seed, and what I'd like to have as an order of conditions is the ability to mow that, perhaps once or twice a year, so that it doesn't turn into a forest or a shrubby area, because there may be opportunities in the future to come back to this commission with a more refined use or more defined use. So we don't want to let that, if it has been a meadow, we don't want to let that get away from us. So we would like to keep that a meadow. So that's what our proposal is, and I guess I'd like to open it up to the commission for any questions.
All right, I'd like to go to our staff, either Eileen or Lucy, and maybe you could talk about the resource area and the constraints.
Okay, can do. So let's leave this up for a minute, just because as Bill described the resource areas, and I agree with him on a lot of things, and I disagree on a couple of things. Vinebrook is here at the kind of bottom left of the screen. The whole of the lot is within the 200-foot river. Exactly, 100% agree. One thing that was missing from your notice of intent, you had checked the box that it was not in an area of priority habitat or estimated habitat. It actually is. That area of Vinebrook is both, so you're going to have to contact Natural Heritage.
Where do you find that information typically? If someone wants to look at that, where do you find that? On a GIS?
Mass Mapper will show, Mass Mapper, if you want to check, well, you probably use that.
Yeah, but none of the work was in that zone, so we wouldn't have to do that. It's work-driven, it's not.
You're doing restoration, you're proposing to replant, re-lawn, but I have issues with that too. And that inner 75 feet or so is also floodway. So it's going to get inundated.
Well, I'll double-check that.
Okay,
but
that's fair enough. We can both check on that.
Mhm.
As he said, it is bordering land subject to flooding as well. DEP has been asking us for a year or two to please use the preliminary floodplain maps, which puts it is a big difference. It's like a 1.5 foot difference, right?
Yes.
At the moment, which I think they perhaps weren't expecting. Couple of the parts that I somewhat disagree about is, as we dealt with in the last hearing, the wording of the Wetlands Protection Act is 10% or 5,000 square feet of alteration, not impervious surface. So one of the questions is, how does gravel count there? I actually did reach out to DEP earlier, so I'll let you know if we get a more definitive answer on that. I think that what Bill's suggesting makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. He's just proposing to replace it at grade, remove 8 inches of soil, put 8 inches of stone on top. I fully get that. I'm just not absolutely sure how DEP will feel about it. The parts I disagree with, though, is that this is an undeveloped site at the moment. I think that whole 100%, 100 feet of riverfront ideally should be left untouched. But he has this sliver where they're proposing to do some more work. What I'd like to see you at least start with, maybe there's a negotiation, is to restore the inner 100 feet, and not just with grass, but with trees and native plantings, because we don't want that to be used in the future. It's inner 100-foot riverfront, not just under the bylaw, but under the wetlands protection.
And floodway.
And floodway, and floodplain. So just some food for thought.
Thank you. So why don't we go and see if anybody has any comments or questions on this one? Sadie, you have anything at the moment? No. Okay, that's all right. Kent? Indra?
So you said that how far it would be? You said from the stream or from the bank of the stream? What is the distance?
This tree line was the present edge of the, call it the field. What we would propose is this line here. This is 100 feet from the bank of the stream. So what we're asking is to utilize some of that inner 100-foot zone, but not use all of this that was presently cleared.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bill?
You show a significant amount of the area closer to the street to be cleared of trees. It's currently treed, so I agree with Eileen 100%.
Of the area near the street?
Not too much. There's a
Oh,
few.
maybe I misunderstood that. You're not proposing to remove any, right?
It's a
It does say tree area.
tree area to be.
Tree area to be
Yep.
cleared, that whole,
Everything to the A Street side of, or the, let's call it the right side of that line, we would like
I
to
misunderstood that.
utilize.
so, you know, I mean, that would, to me, absolutely mean that the rest of the part that you're gonna restore should be trees, at a minimum, you know, because if you're gonna take down those, you gotta replace them somewhere, in the riverfront area here. And the disturbance requires some kind of improvement as well. And I agree with Eileen also that the 100-foot riverfront area should be restored, not that line that you seem to have arbitrarily picked. What was the motivation for that particular line?
That's what the owners felt like they, with their use for the property, that's what they felt like they needed.
Okay. Well, those are my concerns right there, then.
Okay, Rob?
I guess I sort of thinking too that the, like to have the site look a little, like if it's being used for material storage, I think that's good and not sort of move a little bit away from looking like an active construction site or something. So something, possibly something that, you know, if we have gravel in the front to keep, you know, dirt from being brought out into the street from vehicles or whatnot, like that. You know, if we can, you know, have some conditions in the front that would sort of protect the base layer soil.
I'm not sure I'm following what you're asking for.
So, well, looking at the site somewhat, like the use of it, it looks like some with vehicles, a lot of forms and stuff, like for like a construction site, we have a higher level of conditions on that site. So I think something, if it is going to be used for material storage, sort of to have,
so maybe this little piece here wouldn't be.
have the ground look like it's sort of stabilized. It's not going to be bringing,
piece right along here.
the vehicles are coming in and out of the lot. They won't be tracking materials into the street.
No, they won't. Our proposal would be to have it a crushed stone surface. So the whole area would be, function as a tracking pad.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that makes sense in the front part to have, you know, to have some sort of surface like that. And then towards the back have, you know, something that would protect the stream to the back end, and then in the front to sort of, like, separate the two a little bit.
Some sort of demarcation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah?
I share the concern about cutting the trees, and it would be nice to have the area in the 100-foot zone re-treed to compensate for the loss of trees that are closer to A Street. I also wonder if there's some interesting room for negotiation here. If you want that triangular piece of land that is within the 100-foot riparian zone, if there could be some way of persuading you to allow a right-of-way along Vinebrook for people who wanted to walk there, because one of our dreams for Burlington is a Vinebrook walkway where people could enjoy the natural resources. It is quite beautiful there. One of your colleagues said he actually saw an interesting water snake there. I think there's lots of, I mean, some may view it as like an ugly little stream, but I think there are others of us who think it has a lot of potential, and maybe there could be some room for negotiation here. Just a thought.
Sounds like a discussion item with Tim.
Those are my thoughts.
Okay, I'd just add that, for your client's edification, the presence of natural vegetation in the inner riparian zone, the first 100 feet, is considered critical to sustaining the ecosystem. And just grassing it doesn't allow it to function to sustain the stream and the river as an ecological system. The riverfront area is supposed to prevent water degradation and things, and having plants and trees. So usually, the whole idea behind the riverfront is those things, as well as even as habitat. So, in my own mind, and what I know about the situation, it is relatively important that to the extent possible, as much of the inner 100-foot riparian zone actually needs to be not just grassed, it really needs to be vegetated. I mean, you can do it with shrubs, or you can do it with trees, or you can do it with trees and shrubs. Of course, it's a shame that when you bought this piece of property that the current owners didn't realize how many constraints there were on this piece of property. And the other thing is, Eileen, if most of the site, you said the new flood elevation using the preliminary data is 126 or 126.6?
126.5, I think.
126
That's what he said.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, so almost the entire site is in floodplain, correct?
The entire site.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Most of
So-
it was before anyway.
right, but
To be honest.
that's not my point. The point is, and it hasn't been mentioned, is that I think the nature of this person's business is to have temporary, they do foundations, I believe, and things like that. And they're gonna be digging out soil to do that. They're gonna temporarily put soil piles there, which constitutes filling.
If I could, just want to ask Tim for clarification. on that.
Yeah.
Do you plan on storing dirt and materials there, or is it mostly just the concrete forms?
No, we are not an excavating and dirt moving company. We're a slab and foundation company, a concrete company.
Yes.
So we actually put our materials, our forms, our lumber, things like that, right? The reason why, and I just heard a question, and if you don't mind if I could interject for one question.
Oh,
You guys
please
had
do.
a question
Why don't you just state your name for the record so the
Oh, I'm
minutes
sorry.
have it?
Okay.
And why don't you pull up a chair?
Okay.
Right there, Tim.
Sort of make yourself at home.
They told me to stay back there and stay out of it.
Hey, so are you the owner of the property?
I am the owner, correct.
All right,
My
so-
name's Tim McDonald.
Sure. I think we met, did we meet
seven-
your son? I think we met your son on the site.
Yeah, my son's back.
There he is, the guy with the
I met
snake.
him yesterday. He said, I could have told you that you guys were coming, and I said I didn't know, so.
Yeah. That's fine.
But we own, it's a family business, family-run business. My two oldest sons are in the business with.
In your absence, in all fairness, he did fine.
Was he okay to you guys?
It was okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hopefully he treats you better than he treats me sometimes, right?
That's a
But we
di-
all have kids, so we know
That's
how
a
that
different
works.
issue.
So, but yeah, typically, we do not bring dirt and materials to our site, right? We would have, you know, forms, lumber, things like that. The reason why we picked the line where it was, right, is because, as you can tell, there's a gate there. You can see the gate right there. If we only had one way in and one way out, we wouldn't have the ability to turn around the trucks. So we would be backing into A Street. So we were thinking that if we kept the line far enough that the trucks could come off the asphalt area, come here, and then drive into A Street instead of driving into the lot and backing out into A Street.
So that's the reason for the triangle piece.
That was the reason why we picked the line where we chose it.
Got it.
Yep.
We understand.
For a safety factor, you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
why I wanted to interject when you asked that question earlier.
That's not a problem. Okay, so, now, if you have, I don't know if this is true, but, you know, if you have forms there, and you
Yeah, as
have,
you can see, we have the forms
Yeah.
on pallets and stuff.
Yeah.
Eileen asked us if we could crib up the forms when we moved them.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, if anything you're storing there, if the commission decides to agree and Eileen agrees, you can have it up high enough above the elevation,
It should.
and then it's not an issue. If you have, you know, platforms pre-constructed and anything you want to put in there, assuming the commission says, okay, fine, then if it's above the elevation, then it's not considered filling a floodplain, which is one of the constraints.
Yeah, and that's why you notice that we have our piles of forms on 4x4s by her. She asked me to do that.
So
asked
that
us.
was when we met with Eileen shortly after the enforcement order was issued, that was a temporary solution to put them on those 4x4s. As part of this process, in the permitting process, Tim was gonna construct, or will construct, more permanent structures that are above that flood elevation.
Sure, yeah, I mean, the regulations require if the flood can go underneath whatever you're storing there and not be impeded from the way it's supposed to go, you can't change the direction of the flood.
Yep.
If you build it higher than 126.5, you know, the space underneath it, you're all set.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we were talking about, but we didn't want to do anything until we got through this process.
Yeah.
And determined.
I mean, the commission would have to find, I think this is right, Bill, that,
You know, anything
that the,
permanent.
that the legs that it's sitting on are de minimis, is that right? Yeah. So
Yeah, we do that for
Eileen?
patios and
You
stuff,
would,
yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so whatever it's sitting on is actually filling, but it's so small that we sort of waive that as, we call it de
Well,
minimis.
plus there'd be flow-through.
What?
There would be
As
flow-through.
long as there's flow through.
Yeah, it would likely be something, you know, we haven't designed anything yet, but it would likely be sort of a sonotube type
So
situation.
it can be dealt so you can continue to use it and store if our staff agrees and the commission agrees. You know,
But that is why we picked the line where the line ends up cutting across the lot line, or the lot, should I say?
actually, that's very
To
helpful.
try to make it a safer, you know, in this way and then drive out into A Street.
Actually, that's very helpful.
That's justifiable, yeah.
All right, so,
I got one more question.
go ahead.
The statement that says tree area to be cleared, it's not clear to me what the boundaries of that is in the original plan. How much of that tree area, you're not talking the entire tree line and everything behind it, are you?
Is he?
Turn it here, there. You wanted to clear from here forward, correct? For the tree area? You were thinking here?
Yeah, well, that's what,
No, not this, but he's talking about this area here. See
Yeah,
this-
we were gonna clear that whole area
So,
where we
yeah.
were doing that line there.
Okay,
That's why I was saying.
what Tim's thought was if you could just scroll down just a hair. Yep, so where the red line is, the solid red line is, from there towards A Street.
Okay.
And that distance is approximately 97 feet.
And that's part of the truck turnaround area then?
Correct, yep.
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Can we add to that, just to ask, do you know how many trees are in there now? How many would go?
Well, most of the vegetation there is, I'd say, 15 years old or less. There's a few larger specimens there, but the thing that I wrestled with is, you know, I included a 1995 photo in the notice of intent. Other than a few trees around the perimeter, this was a completely maintained site. And then the riverfront area was imposed on it in 1996. That's why I suggested about the, being able to mow the area that's already a grass field, because we don't want to let that turn into a shrubby forested area.
Well,
And be able to, and lose it, because that's what happened all around the front and all around the sides. It just hasn't been mowed or maintained.
unfortunately, the first 100 feet up to the solid line you have there, I mean, up to the dotted line that you drew, the riverfront has value, substantial value in being forested, not mowed, and having shrubs in there, so it can act as a riverfront. If you mow it, it essentially negates the value of the resource area. So,
It could be, and I don't want to debate on this
yeah,
too much, but, by mowing it, it could be a grassland type habitat, which is just as valuable for wildlife as a shrub habitat or a tree habitat.
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that generally, all of our orders on situations like this say, let it go naturally vegetated, is what we normally say. I haven't heard anybody that says it has equal natural resource value, usually if you mow it. That's a bit unusual. It might be true, I'm not saying it's
The
not.
mowing would only be to suppress the shrub growth.
No, that's the wrong thing to do, though, isn't it?
We used to have tons of open field or reverting field habitat, and then the agriculture's gone away, and the trees have all grown up, and now you look around, we all have 50 to 75-year-old trees everywhere, but we've lost that grassland habitat, and I'm particular to.
Apparently you are.
Can I?
I'm not gonna die on that hill tonight, but I just,
Can I interject? So,
Yeah.
Bill had said that in the past, since '95, it had been used quite a lot, and he was, and it
Yep.
had been mowed. I looked at the same aerials that you did, and yes, it was used in 2014, not in 2015, not in 2017, not in 2020, not in 2023. It was really quite treed in 2015, in fact. No use in 2008. Oh, yes, it was used for storage back in 2003. So at a couple of different times, possibly through different ownerships, it has had use and only for storage. This is an undeveloped site, is the point. And if you want to develop it, which there's a reason it was an undeveloped site, is because it's a very tricky site to develop, then I think you would have to be willing to make some concessions. And that would include providing vegetation in there sufficient that you actually don't want to go and use it in the future.
messages received.
Okay.
But that's up to the commission, sorry.
All right, so, well, I think have we discussed all the issues surrounding this? So it seems to me that there is a restoration of the 100, it goes to like, that piece that you explained, we understand. And there's the restoration of that, and then there's, the issue would be having platforms above 126.5 to store anything you want there, and that essentially makes it easy. Is there any other issue?
So you're saying that are you saying that you would like to see more of a restoration plan that includes some planting in the front 90 or so feet?
Right.
And then maybe just at least a sketch of the forms? Or are you completely fine with the idea?
Well, there should
that
be,
they would be over?
there should be something in the record that says that you're providing platforms to store whatever materials you want to store. And as long as it's above 126.5, it's a non-issue as far as the floodplain regulations, which is the reason. Is that?
Yeah. Do we have to define now where all those platforms are going? Just, it would be a condition that if.
You could have, I mean, It's up to Eileen, I think, on that one, the detail, but I mean, think you'd want a little inset as to what they're proposing?
What I was just saying that is that just a little even sketch to say, just so we can be assured that they're actually going to be 18 inches tall. But no, I don't think we necessarily need to see exactly what they're putting in that outer area, as long as we know it's only gravel and platforms and storage. Do you feel like you would need more?
No, I mean, I think we just have to clarify that stone is not alteration, digging out soil and adding stone instead.
That is, there is a chance that DEP might comment otherwise, but
We'll deal with it.
Right. And as long as they define what a platform is gonna look like, we don't really need to know where they're gonna be.
Right.
correct.
Yeah,
Where- There's just a question
If
of
the
whether.
platform is above 126.5.
126.5.
Whatever you need for your truck.
I don't think we will have anything about the platform. It will be it will be supported, the platform, right?
Well, they would define what
Sonotube,
the construction
radiation.
of it is going to be. We say yes, then they can put it wherever they want. Okay.
Well, I kind of see what you're saying, because if it's footings, they would have to go into the ground, and there would probably be more, they wouldn't just be temporary, right?
No.
You
No,
mean-
no, no, they're not.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Most probably, which,
I suppose that's
they
true.
say they're gonna
So,
put the
so,
sonotube.
so,
Yeah,
just so these people are clear, what are we saying?
Define what the platform would look like.
Right.
Yeah, we'll give you a
Sonotubes
detail.
or
Typical
whatever.
detail.
Yeah.
You don't have to
And what
locate
its
it, we don't care where you
elevation
put
will
them.
be, its
In that
elevation
area.
will be.
Yeah, and like I said, we haven't got that far into it,
Right.
but we weren't sure what the process was gonna bring back to us.
We
So,
appreciate you waiting for.
Now that we
answers
do,
before you
we
went ahead.
will kinda toss some stuff around
Yeah.
with us and
We might want at least maybe a sketch idea of where they're going, or numbers or something. So, there would be 4 platforms that are this big, and then you could put them wherever. Something, you know what I mean? Because I think the point is, if you're putting footings in,
Yeah.
it's gonna go all the way through, and it's gonna be a fairly permanent structure, right?
Yeah.
Semi-permanent at least.
Yeah.
It'll be almost like a deck, right?
Sure, yeah.
So-
Probably, sonotube down a couple feet, maybe 2 feet.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
We
Yeah.
haven't really
Right,
thought
right.
that too far
And we'll
into
have to-
that because I wasn't sure.
So I
Right,
don't-
and we'll have to get kind of a number of forms that are generally in rotation.
Right, and we were speaking about it,
Yeah,
but
but
we
we
weren't
didn't-
sure
right,
which direction to
correct.
go in because we weren't sure.
Yep, so we can get you
Okay.
more information on that.
So,
I guess the board's
and as far as a restoration plan with plantings, we don't have to sit here and take up your time now. Can they do that offline with you folks, Eileen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just talk to them and come to agreement on what you're gonna do.
You think we need,
Um,
because if this area stays,
Plus
it's gonna impact the number of forms.
footing sizes.
So,
Okay, so this is a hearing. Is there anyone else here in the audience that has concerns about it or wants to talk? We're supposed to ask for anybody else here. I don't see anybody online about it, I don't think. And nobody else in the room is raising their hand. So there's a few things you have to do. Come up with a restoration plan and a little detail on the platforms, what you plan to do, and then, do you want to come back in 2 weeks?
I think so, yes.
All right. All right, then why don't we have a motion to continue the hearing for 7A, the project at 7A Street, to the meeting of March 27th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, 600.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me ask, Eileen, do you think that if those couple of things that we talked about are submitted, you got to try and submit them ahead of time? Could we close this out for them, you think, at the next meeting?
I think so, but it might just depend on whether there's anything, I can't promise it pending DEP comments.
Right.
Yes.
So if there's no issue with DEP, the state, we'll try to close this out for you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
You to call by the next meeting?
What's that?
DEP?
Would they have, hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
They've commented now, as you know, on the middle school one.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you, folks, very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
The middle school is really the same situation in our 100 feet. We should be attempting to hold them to something similar.
Okay, next is a public hearing. Notices given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing, during which time will take information related to a notice of intent filed by HPM Bruno Realty Trust for the demolition of a dwelling and construction of a new dwelling at 4 Easton Ave. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands under State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The commission will review information relative to the application and may issue an order of conditions and a Burlington Wetlands permit. And the application material is posted on a link at the conservation website.
I thought it would be
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry to make you wait so much.
Oh, no problem.
That's okay, we'll just,
Greg Saab from ESS. Which TV would you prefer?
I prefer that one because everyone can see it. There's glare off of this, we can't see it really.
We're getting it up for you.
yeah, I'm just finding that, because you sent us the color-coded one, so I put it in the folder. Give us 2 seconds to
Okay.
find it for you, because the color is nice. The commission will appreciate it.
I might actually have it.
Do you already have it?
Well, it's not open yet, but it's thinking about
You're
it.
getting there? Color-coded plans for meeting you got there,
Yours
haven't
might
you?
open first. Mine's like, oh, there we go.
Oh, come on, we both got it. Mine's opening too. All right, go ahead.
Okay, we zoom in.
All right, so this is the proposed house. There is an existing house, and the driveway is in the same area, so this driveway is gonna remain same entranceway. So we have a proposed dwelling, we're gonna take the existing dwelling down. There is a patio area and a shed that's gonna come out. We're gonna increase the impervious area by under 200 square feet. I think the number came out to 163. But we're gonna put in a roof drain system designed for the 100-year storm. We're gonna meet your 40-foot no-build zone. We have a post and rail fence going along this area, and the wetland is over in this area. On the sidewalk, we found that there's debris from the previous owner between flags 3 and 4. We're gonna remove that debris. And Larry also noticed that there's a tree right in this area that is a dying tree. It has a big gaping opening in it, and it's actually leaning towards the house over here. So we'd like to remove that tree. And that tree is within the no disturb zone. And I guess we discuss on how to remove it and what you want left of the tree. But it's basically your typical rip down rebuild. We're gonna reduce the runoff off the site, and we're gonna put up a big house. So it's an existing three-bedroom, this is like a 5-bedroom.
Of course, it's a big house.
Well, with the prices of the land.
Right.
What the market demands.
So that's what's there now.
Little baby.
All right,
There's a shed,
Oh, you missed it.
Right.
But you were there, Sarah. The cute
that's
house.
the debris,
Tiny house.
right,
and that's the patio.
got it. All right, that was a good summary, thanks so much. Eileen or Lucy, you want to say a few words?
I don't know if I could do much better than that. It's nice they're actually removing a lot of impervious cover, so it really is a tiny, tiny increase compared to most of these builds, which is great because it is a bigger house. I feel like I'm happy with the debris being removed from the wetlands. It looks like a lot of like lawn clippings, etc. My thought personally would be if the tree that is dying were to be removed, and I don't believe I've got that picture in there. We have another one we can pull up. I'm always in for a snag. I think that's great. It leaves a good amount of habitat, but that's all I have to say.
Oh, it was in the folder, actually.
Yeah, I can pull it up.
Okay, that's it, all set. Rob, anything in this one?
I guess I was just wondering if the regrade behind the Coltech chambers, it looks like there's like, it goes from maybe, there's just a little bit behind there. Could that affect any vegetation in the back, or?
There is a little vegetation, so the erosion control, I don't know if it's up there, but it basically goes right around the property line. So there is a little bit of vegetation where this grade is gonna be, so we're gonna level out the backyard and then just do a 3-to-1 slope. But it's, there's not much, there's no major trees in that area.
But I think Rob makes a good point. It does look like there's a tree line. Will you be able to do the work without affecting anything that's, other than maybe tiny saplings and brushy stuff?
Yes, that's all.
There was a lot of, it's a bit
And,
open back there.
and I could slide that up a few feet, that is not a problem, because on one of the plans I sent you today, it shows the location of the trees that we were talking about out there and the debris. So I could slide that up a little bit.
All right.
See what, yeah.
Okay, Sarah?
I don't have any concerns.
Sadie, anything?
No, I don't think so. As long as, I guess, as long as there was no issues previously with the wetland impact, I think that makes sense.
Kent?
No, it's just a comment
Indra?
that Lucy made about the snow.
How far you're from the wetland is that stormwater system you're putting, the roof?
So it looks like it's about 45 feet based on the 40-foot line.
45 feet.
Yep. And it's 2 feet above the water table. We did the test pit in that area.
So have you done the test pits?
Yes, we did one in the front, towards the side yard, and one in the back.
So what is the water level, groundwater?
It is, let's see, in the back area, it is elevation 120.7, and that's probably roughly the flag elevation.
Roughly,
It's roughly, it's 120.7, which is roughly the flag elevation,
oh,
the wetland flag elevation.
I think did you mean the depth of the groundwater?
Depth.
About,
Depth.
Oh,
one of
total
them-
depth, okay.
It's 60 inches approximately in one of them, which I think is the
Yep.
front one, and then 40
40
in the back,
in the
which is
back.
why he's raising it up a little bit.
Yes, yeah, and it'll level the yard out, so you won't have, the slope that's there now, you have the water that runs off, there's a decent slope there, so now we're gonna have a leveling area, and then it will drop. So it actually slows down the time of concentration.
so you are changing the grade elevation?
Yes, the grade in the back is gonna change to make sure we keep up above the water table with the roof drain system.
So how many feet you will be?
Let's see. 24, 2 feet at the highest point.
2 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bill?
Indra stole my question. I was curious about the clearance below the drainage and stuff, so that's it. I'm all set.
I didn't see your notes.
He wasn't peeking. The only question I have is the tree that's being taken down was in pretty sad shape, the base of it. Do we need to ask for a tree to be replaced, or is it well vegetated enough that it's kind of, I got the impression it was pretty vibrant wetland.
The wetland, it's fine, but what were you thinking? Leave a snag was Lucy's thought, if you're open to that?
So when you say a snag, you leave it, like, say, 10 feet
Yeah.
tall?
10, 12 feet, something like that. It's
Is-
still a habitat, but it won't fall on anybody.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, we can do that.
But I know Lucy and I are always open to a new little tree going up somewhere, sure.
If you want to plant a tree, we're not going to say no.
Well, if you can find a place to
Like
plant
a
a
red
tree
maple
near
closer?
the 20 feet from the wetland, somewhere in there, if there is a place. If not, then, just talk to Eileen or Lucy about it.
All right.
Well,
The-
I would like that, because they're gonna be doing a little bit of work in the
Removing,
wetlands. They're gonna
yes.
be gently and delicately kind
Right.
of pulling some stuff
Right.
back out there.
They could put it in that
So,
spot along the
yeah,
drainage.
they could put something right in there.
Right.
right where we remove
Help
the
it-
debris.
Yeah, just to
So
help it
like-
kind of,
Like a 4-foot red maple maybe or
that would be
something?
lovely.
Great.
Would that work for you, Greg?
That works.
Okay. Usually they do pretty well in wet
In
areas.
a nice damp area, yeah.
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 I didn't hear anything big that he has to get back to us on, so can we continue it to the next meeting and plan to just close an issue?
I think we could.
All right.
You do, Lucy?
And-
01.
And
So
I
is-
did email DEP today.
Sure.
About the file number, and I think they have an issue with their online payment. They're not receiving them.
Oh, dear.
So I had to shoot them the credit card payment and the receipt of the online payment.
Sure.
And he even used DEP and paid online. You should have been one of the fast ones,
Yeah.
right?
They said they didn't have anything for it.
Well, that's crazy.
My credit card did.
All right, it's good your credit card has lots of capacity.
So he-
That's it. Fine.
I think if Greg's open to it, I'm sorry for jumping in on
Oh,
top of
please.
you, Lucy. I was just going to say, I would like to see on the plan, just the fact that, you know, a little note saying, moving the pile and planting one tree.
Yes.
Is everyone okay with that?
Sure, sure, that would be,
So we all
that would be great.
memorialize it?
They're documented.
And tree to be removed, did you say that? Debris removed, but tree to be removed also, or tree to be,
To be
do you want the tree?
chopped,
The chopped tree?
Snagged.
Snagged?
snagged. Is that a verb?
It is now.
Is now.
All right, okay, so I think we're all set. Is there anybody online? There's nobody here in the room. Anybody online that wants to talk about this project at 4 Eastern Ave? No. All right, so I guess therefore, could I have a motion to continue the hearing for 4 Eastern Ave for HPM Bruno Realty Trust, continue it to the meeting of March 27th? Moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
It's a nice and easy one after all that.
Yes, that
You
was
should
very,
put me first.
I know,
Yes.
sorry.
maybe next time, keep that in mind, put them first.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
Yeah, we kept them waiting a while, unfortunately. All right,
True. I should have told him, don't even show up before 8.
yeah. All right, so here we are now, we're down around continued public hearing, proposed stormwater regulations, was continued to May 22nd, 2025, so,
I'm just keeping it on the agenda in case I forget.
yeah, so I can tell the commission that Eileen and I attended the select board meeting. It wasn't for approval of the stormwater warrant article that we submitted, it was for review. So they really didn't vote, they're going to vote at a later date. But it appeared that we answered their questions, there was nothing major that came up at all, and they seemed satisfied that it was they actually commented, our staff, that it was very well presented in terms of them understanding it. I think they kind of dwelled on that. So, congratulations.
They like to make us feel better when they're not scolding us.
When they're not what?
Scolding us.
Oh, come on. All right.
You know, scolding wasn't fair. But we had a lot of questions the first time around.
We did, but
Yeah.
this time it was like they were very satisfied with what we've accomplished. And it should go through without a problem, and then we go to town meeting. And I guess, Bill, you've agreed to do the presentation?
At town meeting, yep.
That's great, okay.
Is-
All right, and that's on the warrant article. Once the bylaw is, the revised bylaw, which is much, much shorter, with all the authority and the thresholds in it, is passed by town meeting, hopefully, then we will essentially take all the detail, all the technical details and the lists of things that were in the bylaw now, and we will approve it as regulations.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so next is planning board comments. Do we have anything for the planning board?
We don't have anything, well, we'll update them. The planning board has determined, planning staff has determined that the middle school project will require a minor engineering change and also do I mean site plan or special permit? Oh, sorry, the middle school, the artificial turf
Special
field,
permit.
special permit, I'm sorry. I just get those two things conflated sometimes in my head when I'm.
So they haven't opened up the special
They have not opened
permit.
it, they're partly just waiting to make sure that they know we're undergoing the process. So we'll just keep them informed of that.
All right. And subcommittee and staff reports, do we have anything else going on in that regard?
Oh, yes, Lucy is giving, is having, and we want to see some of you there. Why didn't we see this
I
before?
know, forgot about it.
Lucy is going to be doing a fabulous presentation and meeting.
Info session.
An info session
If you will.
next Wednesday for, to try and kind of re-energize the land stewards program. So we've been getting that out on social media, and Tad from BCAT interviewed her, so we'll send them the video as well.
So this is
Tell
like,
your
this is
friends.
like a solicitation?
It seems to be, yeah.
It is a solicitation, so yeah, but she's welcoming anybody who's interested in being a steward or interested in finding out. You should do the talking, I'm sorry.
I'm holding an info session to,
Our-
same thing.
Have you talked to Nikki at Burlington Buzz about
I
it?
have tagged them in social media, they've been sharing my stuff.
She has shared.
Which has been lovely.
She has
I
shared.
do think that I was in the Buzz newsletter also.
Because she can do a podcast.
They shared the BCAT.
I don't know if she would, but maybe she would agree to do like a 20-minute podcast or 50, whatever long your presentation is.
Yeah.
You could,
Oh, you mean at it? You mean
Or
as part of it?
afterwards.
Oh, well, we can connect with her.
Yeah, no, I made the email mailing list, so that was fun. But no, I want to get some people out patrolling our trails, if you will, but also organizing community events, leading walks. Other towns do cute things like make pollinator kits and distribute them to residents. I think things like that could be lovely. A nice way to foster community around our open space in town.
so you're going to be giving examples of what we would ask the land stewards to do.
Yes, yeah, I'm mostly saying, here's some ideas I have, but it's a collaborative thing, and I can't sit here and lead you guys. It's a community effort that we need to do.
And also, it's totally a range of what people are comfortable
yeah.
doing. Some people, if all they want to do is tell us when there's a tree down, that's
to hear
great.
it.
That's great. If they want to get more involved, also great, right?
So what time and where?
It is next Wednesday, March, what is that, 19th?
19?
6 to 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Annex basement,
Okay.
conference room.
And you are inviting the public to attend?
The public may attend if they are interested in becoming land stewards.
Is it on the calendar,
It is on the calendar, I believe.
town calendar?
It should
Well,
be.
we'll see in a moment, but we'll make sure it is.
Time is it?
It's on Nikki's calendar, it's on BCAT.
No, what time is the info session again?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yeah, 6 to 7.
So after dinner, if you run really quickly, or send your kids, whatever.
Come hang out with me.
Yeah.
It'll be not spooky in the basement at all, I promise.
Lucy, that's great. Okay, other business.
Can I mention something, just to have it, be aware of? The provision for hybrid meetings is expiring at the end of March. So we don't know yet whether it'll be extended. It hasn't yet, but you never know what'll slip in in the last minute. I think it's been great having this option of people like checking in or sharing from a different position, but if it ends, then we'll have to switch back to in person. We will let you know. I just wanted to give you a heads up now, and hope then by the last meeting in March, it'll probably be definitive then one way or the other.
So no more participating from a cruise ship or anything like that? Okay, I got it.
I have something I just wanted to mention. I saw there's a planning board hearing on the 100-year floodplain district a week from Thursday, a week from today.
There's a hearing.
On behalf of the Conservation Department, it says. What is it?
Yeah, well, okay, it says on behalf of the Conservation Department. So John Keeley actually updated the floodplain bylaw a little over a year ago. All the towns that participate in the National Flood Insurance Program had to update our bylaws to reflect the wording that was in a model bylaw that was created, and to also reflect the new mapping that we were actually talking about earlier this evening. So at the time that he did that update, we did not have the final dates for the mapping and the study. We now do. We were just getting a little ahead of the game. So what I've done is I have now tweaked that bylaw mostly to just reflect housekeeping changes, meaning what are the dates of the FEMA mapping and report, and a couple of other little very minor things that town council noted, like a couple of abbreviations. That's really what it is. So I did it on behalf of the planning board, but I'm, I guess, telling people all about it because we did it. But it's very minor changes.
Okay.
Anything else for other?
Well, did we tell you already that another thing that we put in, I think we probably did, I'll just tell you again anyway. Another thing we put into town meeting is making it official that we can have associate members.
Yes.
You looked at Sadie, because we've done it, but we haven't, it's not been official.
Would you care to tell us how it feels to be unofficial?
I didn't know at the beginning, so not much
We
different.
didn't realize either, because we'd had a couple, I think Kent was it an associate member, Jennifer was? So,
Kent did his whole associate commissioner of membership as an unofficial person. Can you just imagine that?
there hasn't been an issue.
I'm just amazed the first 30 minutes didn't scare her off.
It's just making sure there won't be in the
That
future.
scared me off.
All right, okay, upcoming meetings. The next meeting is March 27th of the commission, and the one in April is April 10th. All right, anything further? Could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Good night, everyone.